Hello, everyone, and welcome to this next episode of Truth Shots with Kapil, the de addiction series. I'm extremely proud and I'm extremely interested today because I have with me Neera Maini Srivastav. And an interesting tidbit is she comes from my old fraternity of the digital and the marketing industry. She's been in the field for almost 20 years, working in advertising, publishing, and entertainment. She's worked for MNCs like Low, Saatchi and Saatchi, Percept Gulf in India as well as in Dubai. Worked with media conglomerates like the Times Group, helped build brands, tell stories, pen books, both in fiction as well as in non-fiction. Some of her books have been used in curriculums in reputed schools as well and have also been adapted to theatrical productions. We'll talk more about that with her as we begin. Some of the books that you would have heard of are The White Crow, The Adventures of the Bubblegum Boy, One Friend Request Sent from Hanuman, 150 Brilliant Ideas to Keep, Young Minds Fit and Fine, Hack the Boredom Code, and many others. So, Neera, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Kapil, and really honored and happy to be here to be a contribution to this conversation and to anyone who's listening to it.
Thank you so much. And as you all know, this particular series, we are talking about the addiction. Or for many of you, we are talking about addiction and its causes. So, Neera, let me straight away jump into it. So,
Yeah.
you've been in the media entertainment industry. You have worked with large mainline brands. You have seen the digital revolutions in that world. But with
Yeah.
digital addictions like the excessive screen time, social media, gaming, online shopping, all of these becoming more prevalent, how can mindfulness practices help individuals, especially the younger generations, find balance in their lives?
So I think to begin with, this whole digital overload, and there's nothing that we can do about it except that one can become more conscious as a consumer of digital platforms. I think what it has done over the years, especially among the youth, is that it's kind of cut them off from human emotions. There is some, because of constantly interacting with devices and not human beings, right? You're on screens and that's your world. So one has almost forgotten what it is to, give a hug, you know, a handshake, maybe a pat on the back. We've forgotten, very, very fundamental human emotions and expressions of those, which can lead to a lot of mental health conditions and issues. I wouldn't say disorders, but disorders really taking it to the edge. But conditions, because you're unable to therefore express yourself the way a human should, right? So I think that has created a yawning gap uh, in the psyche, which is why there is a lot of suppression of emotions because you're not even letting it out, right? There is no exchange, there is no emotional exchange. I mean, how much can you exchange over a screen, right? Over a mobile phone, over a WhatsApp, right? Hearing a human voice, touch and feel, and that goes across, behaviors like even shopping, online shopping, whether it's networking, social networking, all of that, even businesses, why leave that out? Today, it's you're interacting with clients on WhatsApp. I mean, there used to be a time we used to just go across and have a cup of coffee with a client, and an idea would be born there. You know
Yep.
what I mean? In that conversation. So I think we've lost out on all of that, right? And while we can't really deny this whole digital access or digital life, as I would call it, one can definitely be a little more conscious, and
Sure.
that's where mindfulness really comes in, right? It's not that I will not use my mobile phone. Why? It's a part of your life today. You can't just deny it. But I will therefore cut off. I will know where the cutoff is, right? I will therefore make time and space for other interactions which are more enriching, right? So it's all about, striking that balance. And really, life and harmony is all about balance, right? Uh, and I think speaking of balance, that is what is needed to also contribute to de addiction, because addiction is, compulsive seeking, right? Of something that has a charge over you. So once there is a balance within the person, and I think mindfulness practices have a huge part to play, right? I think automatically you will stop seeking that,
Sure.
right? It's a natural shift that happens. So that's my two bits on, what's happening today and where mindfulness can really come in.
Sure, sure. And as a mindfulness coach and a children's author, what advice would you give to parents on, helping out their kids that are suffering from the negative impact, specifically of gaming addiction?
So I think, firstly, parents themselves have to be conscious consumers of technology. If a parent is constantly on the phone, right, that's what a child will also pick up. So why blame the kid, right? Uh, what are you demonstrating with your behavior? Because a child will replicate that, either subliminally or even consciously. And then you really have no right to tell the child, hey, keep your phone down, because you're not demonstrating that, right? It's walking the talk. And I think that's the first step, right? Walking the talk is really the first step. And also engaging them in, you know, more outdoor activities, which will really fuel their growth in a very different way. Uh, I think sport is a huge area, rather than this online gaming. Taking your kids out, maybe to, a farm or any other excursion, which is a trek or any adventure sport, or, just a picnic, right? It's the simplest form of an outdoor excursion, being with nature. So all of that is going to contribute to their, growth, and also in a way taking them away from, the digital addiction.
Sure. And, next is the question that I many times ask myself as well. Um, a few years back, I don't know if anybody would have imagined something like an IPL to become, call it a self-fulfilled initiative. Where
Right.
on one side you have IPL, and on one side you would have something like a Dream 11, which would become the largest sponsor of IPL. So it's, it's being self-fulfilled
Right.
in many ways. Um,
Yeah.
I guess I have two parts to that question. The first part is, in your perspective, what do you think people like you and me, people who come from the media and entertainment and advertising
Yeah.
background, in what way do you think we as an industry can shift our focus to become more responsible in addressing this, growing influence of new age addictions, gaming and gambling and the likes of it?
So I think also, like I said, creating and curating, enough experiences. Whether even if you're in the corporate sector, creating meaningful experiences for your employees, say, or your staff, right? Uh, Rather than just, it's all about, chasing the numbers, or it's all about that final appraisal, right? But how about just an interaction, right? Which is stripped of all of this, stripped of judgment. And I think that kind of experience really contributes to, human to human interaction. And I think where there is enriched human to human interaction, uh, that's where bonds are developed. And once there is a bond, I think mental health is automatically taken care of. Because right now, and especially the youth, right? They feel extremely lonely. I mean, they may have a million followers online, but we've done a study which said that they are the loneliest, you know.
Mhm.
So, and loneliness is a huge today mental health. issue that people are dealing with, which of course leads to several other conditions, right? So how do you break that impasse, right? So I feel it. I just come down to very basic is a human to human coming back to basics, right? Uh, that human to human interaction is what will really save us from this spiraling into a much bigger, it's already spiraling, but to do our bit to control it, right? So I feel just creating enriching experiences for people, whether even at school levels, right? In education, and I'm sorry I'm digressing a bit, uh, but I think education needs to undergo a huge transformation where
Absolutely.
kids are spending so many hours there. That is where I think growth, meaningful growth, can be looked at. Apart from teaching them numbers and history, how about really teaching them on how to really become a productive human being, a happier human being, right?
In
That
fact,
is what,
when
sorry.
I go to schools and I do a lot of workshop with schools,
Mm.
most of the times my pitch to the principals and the school teachers and the owners of the schools is, hey, there are two ways that you can leave the schools in your kids, the kids in your schools with. One is you leave them with trauma. Second is you leave them with mental wellness. You make the choice what you want to do, and that's really where we look at doing larger scale mental wellness implementations within schools. So
Oh,
absolutely agree.
absolutely. So, I remember, and I just like to share this experience. I was invited as author to one of the schools, just to, as an author visit, right? You talk about your books and all
Mhm.
of that. And I didn't want to do that. I did go for the visit, and I said, let this be an experience for them. Uh, I don't want to talk about myself and what I have achieved, right? And I just made it a very interactive experience of, getting them to think and imagine stories.
Yep.
Uh, and the moment I opened with the line that this session is not going, you're not going to be judged on this, right? It's just about you having fun with your imagination. And
Yep.
believe you me, the next moment I saw a completely different audience.
Absolutely.
The faces were glowing. There was some little twinkle in their eyes. It's like they almost came alive. You know, like when I entered, I'm sorry to use that word. I saw carcasses, really. But the moment I said that, it was almost like a switch, right? And what happened later was just fabulous. They came up with the most amazing ideas and amazing stories. There was so much enthusiasm. And
Sure.
I'm stressing the word enthusiasm. Curriculum needs to inspire today, you know, and they're killing it,
Sure.
and they're also making kids addicted to success. Now, academic pressure is another kind of addiction, right? So they are creating this. And I think someone needs to, really take an overhaul of all of this and completely revolutionize. And I think we need change agents for that, leaders, right? Coaches who are able to see this and, integrate that into the system, because academic institutions have been used to following the same, pretty much the same method, for ages, right? But
Yep.
I think that's where revolution needs to begin.
Yep. In fact, even the most progressive educational institutes, they now will not talk about, academic excellence, and they would talk about giving kids, the children, the freedom, and they would talk
Yeah,
about let them define where they are going to excel at. And I
yeah,
always, I always say that is the job half done. Because one of my fundamental problems is not with the kid identifying what is it that they will excel at, but really looking at the kid that doesn't excel at. I mean, there is a kid who is average at everything. Now, what are
right.
you saying? He or she needs to find something that they excel at. Well, they will determine their calling 10 years later from now. So what? So creating that environment where just
Yeah.
being at the top is not what you need to do. Being a player is more important than being the winner. Is the kind of environment, or is the kind of structure that we need to create in the education.
Absolutely.
Right. But with that, let me move from addiction into the field of de-addiction. Because that's really important. You and I, in our roles, can probably do limited involvement when it comes to controlling addiction, or removing the barriers to addiction. I mean, that's a way larger social initiative where, of course, people like you and I can participate, but it's not something that we can get done in a day. So in that sense,
Right.
one of the areas that I think we need to meaningfully look at impacting is the area of de-addiction, is the area where we are able to empower and we are able to provide the right kind of tools and capabilities such that people who are addicted, and let me limit this particular conversation to more behavioral addictions, to people who are
Right.
addicted with some behavior, whether it is internet or social media or gaming or gambling, or even in some cases shopping or porn, for that example. um, how do you think, what are the key challenges that you see when it comes to de-addiction from this new age or behavioral addictions?
So I think firstly, you know, we're increasingly becoming a very materialistic society, right? Because consumerism is beyond anyone's control today. And therefore, there are a lot of temptations, right? You are surrounded with so much to engage you, and it's not leaving you any moment with I would say, a productive pause.
Sure.
Pause is absolutely not there. It's like even the youth, living in an always on life, I would say.
Mhm.
Either even if you're on a holiday, you're swiping to check your mails or your WhatsApp. You just cannot be in that moment, you know. So, and coming back to, again, addiction. So what is really addiction? You're seeking an escape from something. Now, it's very important to go back there and figure out what is it that you're, really seeking an escape from and why. And I
Sure.
think that is where the work needs to be done.
Sure. And
Where a lot of experts need to come in and figure out, how is it that you can help the individual figure that out?
Mhm.
Because otherwise, the person will keep hopping. Okay, you control an individual's, say, digital addiction. There are a host of other addictions. He will keep moving from one addiction to another. It can be a relationship addiction, right? Because it's something at the core of your being that you're not able to handle, and therefore you seek either substance or a behavior to latch on to, right? So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done to figure out the cause. And I think what's happening today, and I think one of the biggest challenges, people are not looking at the cause. They're only treating symptoms,
Mhm.
even initiatives, right? Government initiatives, this initiative, that initiative. It's only tackling things I call them band-aids. They will
Sure.
solve it for a while, but you're not attacking the root cause, right?
Sure.
So I think that's the biggest challenge, and therefore it will fail. It will have a momentary suntan effect, but it will not eradicate it,
Mhm.
right?
One of
So
the
I think,
fundamental,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead, please.
sorry. No, so I feel that is one of the biggest challenges. You have to plumb deeper.
Sure.
Mental health is not about just treating the system, symptoms and creating these, talk lines and fine. I mean, I'm not completely rubbishing that, but who is even thinking about going to the cause is my question.
Right, absolutely. And I guess one of the things that we saw, so during
Yeah.
me doing research around addictions, de-addictions, and what is there and what could be done, one of the major aspects that I saw is one, stigma. Nobody wants to acknowledge that they have an addiction, whether it is a substance use or a behavioral addiction. Number two, discovery. Actually, let me not even use the word discovery. Let me use the word solution. Assuming I say I have internet addiction, or I have social media addiction, or I have, whatever, porn addiction, or I have gaming addiction or gambling addiction. Okay, so I have addiction. Now what do I do? I'm not somebody who can get rid of it through my willpower. Now
Yeah.
what do I do? So I think one of the challenges that we saw was not just, specifically when it comes to behavioral addiction, the intervention that existed to date was primarily willpower. And for most people that doesn't necessarily work very well. That's
Yeah.
the lack of it, or the inability to do so, is what gets
Yeah.
us to an addicted mode.
Yeah.
So that is why when I, recently launched the Praram Life program, which is basically a technology-based intervention providing behavioral de-addiction to people
Mhm.
through a mobile app platform and a web-oriented platform in a completely anonymous, self-served kind of a manner. I thought that there is a lot that people would be able to gain through that, because they don't have to worry about stigma, they don't have to worry about going through an in-center treatment, which, for specifically, since we are talking youth in most cases, which is probably not even feasible. I mean, nobody is going to be able to give up 3 months of their life and go into a de-addiction center for an internet or a social or a gaming or a gambling kind of a problem. So that is where, I guess, my question to you, in what you are seeing and as you are working through mindfulness and other aspects that you are helping people with, what role do you think technology can play in this?
So I think technology can be a great enabler as well, right? It, like you said, right? It brings you, I think, the advantage of anonymity, uh, which is which is actually the icebreaker.
Right.
It's like, like a child is finds it easier to talk to a complete stranger or a teenager than the parent.
Absolutely.
And why is that? Because of that wall of judgment, right? You're going to be judged by your parent, but you will not be judged by a stranger. And you really don't care because it's a stranger, right? So I think that wall, really needs to break. And I think technology can do that in a very, very interesting way. Also, you know, as a creative person, I think we can also create very interesting, engaging content. And when I'm saying content, I'm saying fictional content. Today, the entire OTT is filled with what? It's crime and gore, right? It's a lot of crime and gore and cartel and all of that. What if we were to really create very engaging content, which is also meaningful, right? And it leaves you with something thoughtful,
Mm-hmm.
and enriching, because content, I mean, can also create a huge influence on a person's psyche,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that's where, the content creators need to become more conscious and create more engaging content, which will, even in the sphere of gaming, for example. So even in the gaming universe, why can't we have games that contribute to more positive emotions? Why can't there be a game on just, seeking happiness? Yeah. I mean, why are creators wearing that thinking hat? And it's the same platform, right? You're using the same device of a game.
Yep.
So using the same device, the same technology, you can really flip it, right? To a more productive, a more positive outcome.
Yep.
So I feel there's a lot that we can do, as creators, to
Mm-hmm.
really create more content which subliminally the audience will start consuming and therefore become a behavior pattern, you know.
So time to bring back the Panchtantras, I guess.
Absolutely. And, also maybe clothing it in a more contemporary idiom, something that the generation of today can resonate with, right? So that is really what is needed. In fact, one of my books, The Adventures of the Bubblegum Boy, the bubblegum is really the protagonist in the story. And
Okay.
what it does is it traps lies. The bubble, when you blow the bubble traps lies. So
Okay.
anyone who's lying, the bubble bursts, right? It's a very simple device in the story. Now, somebody had approached me for gaming rights for this book. They wanted to just create a game which is based on truth and lies.
Sure.
So, so you understand how there is a possibility and the potential to completely flip the same entertainment to a more productive outcome. And I think it has a huge role to play as well.
Yep.
And
So you don't
that's how we can
necessarily
employ technology.
right. You don't necessarily need to give a gun to a child for entertainment. You can as well give them a magic
Absolutely.
wand to set things right. Uh,
Absolutely.
so absolutely,
Absolutely.
I
You know,
absolutely agree. Now,
yeah.
one of the challenges that, and I have numerous parents, teachers, and everyone talk about this. One of the basic challenges that they face is when they have a student or a kid who is on the verge of or actually going through an addiction, they're not really able to find escape routes for themselves. So how do you think mindfulness can help them with developing those healthier ways to cope and manage their stress levels, manage their addiction levels, and basically to get support for them?
So I think mindfulness also, it's what is really mindfulness, right? It's about the art of being in the moment,
Right.
of really being able to harness the present moment, right? Without any kind of distractions or escape mechanisms, right? And I think any mind body system uh, does a huge, does a very potent work in achieving that harmony within the individual. So
Sure.
it's not about you telling the person, hey, don't do this, but you are actually enabling that person to seek his own wisdom, so that he can then control his own behavior. It's not about you controlling somebody, it's about really empowering. So I think this whole mindfulness space is all about empowering the person to use his own wisdom and
Sure.
awaken that consciousness, right? And all the practices within the mindfulness space actually end up doing that, right? It's not about giving a lecture or, all those didactic arguments to the child that don't do this and don't do that. It's only empowering.
Sure.
And I think the role of a mindfulness coach is being an enabler. And an enabler never judges, it just enables you to come up with solutions that are within you. And that's why mindfulness is so powerful,
Hmm.
as a system. And of
Sure.
course, over time, right, when practiced in the right way, over time, it has amazing results. And I'll share with you, I had gone to, the NAB, the National Association for the Blind, because one of my books was also published in Braille.
Okay.
And when I got talking to them, one of the educators there, she actually told me that, we did an experiment with a simple chanting of Omkara chanting with the physically challenged and also mentally challenged kids. And she said, especially, I think, ADHD, right? And they did this experiment, and within a few weeks of that practice, simple practice of Omkara chanting, their stress levels of the kids were like almost dropped to 20% from
Wow.
a 70%, you know. So, and this is measured, like you spoke about measuring, right? This is actually measured effectiveness of mindfulness practices.
Mhm.
So
So
it can go a really long way, you know,
sure.
in achieving results. Yeah.
Sure. So one of the things that we have recently been experimenting with and have recently launched is we call this Treffy. So it's essentially, within the Soul Wellness platform, we have launched a capability where you can take a selfie video, a selfie image and a video of you, and the system will come back and tell you your stress. It is based on facial emotional recognition technology. With a reasonably reliable kind of a capability. I mean, the published results around it says it has a 80 to 90% reliability. So one of the things that we are actually working with schools on in their basic essence to implement mindfulness, in their basic essence to provide more capabilities, is we are talking to them about implementing this across various strategic points within an institute, whether it is a school or a college or a corporate for that matter, so that they can measure stress level of people across various vantage points, and then kind of
Yeah.
do a deep down analysis in if something changed and what changed and how do they kind of make those interventions. So yeah, I mean, at least
Yes.
in our view, in the work that we are doing, we think technology has a huge role to play when it comes to mental wellness, and specifically when
Absolutely.
it comes to de-addiction. Being able to monitor somebody's stress levels or somebody's body emotions while they are going through a de-addiction program could be significantly more
Mm.
valuable than just simply running the program in the absence of everything. So yeah, in that sense, I think
Yeah.
technology itself would play a significant role, not just as a means of advocacy, which is how technology gets used many times in such initiatives, but actually in terms of being a true implementer or being a true provider as a distribution capability as well.
Yeah, and also disseminating very engaging and enriching content, right? Technology can play such a huge role there.
Mhm. Absolutely. Okay. So any thoughts that you want to leave our audience with around de-addiction or around specific practices or specific tidbits, something that they could do as they are going through their daily lives?
So I think it just may sound a little, I don't want to sound preachy, uh, but I think also the body clock, right? Correcting the body clock is, I think, number one.
Sure.
Uh, so, that whole thing of waking up early, starting your day early, it has huge ramifications on your mental health, right? Because it alters your sleep patterns. It also alters your enthusiasm levels, your energy levels, your focus areas, right? And I think so. For me, that is number one. Is that whole daily regime of waking up early, practicing some mindfulness technique or a tool, whatever you call it, whether it's yoga, whether it is uh, just sitting in silence for a few minutes, being with yourself. And I think third is also, practicing some kind of maybe I wouldn't call it a habit, but your way of contributing to somebody other than yourself.
Sure.
It's going beyond yourself. And the moment you do that, your own mental health is taken care of.
Sure.
That whole shifting your focus sometimes from you to somebody else and being a contribution to that person in any which way. Like I've seen so many kids who volunteer, right? And go for these, read to the blind kids or any kind of, or to the elderly, right? It's being a contribution to something or an issue or anyone, right? Touching one human life in the smallest way possible. It could be just smiling at someone,
Sure.
you know. So for me, these are very, very simple, but, they are practices that will slowly start etching away and, create a holistic human being.
Absolutely. So, addiction usually for people is a very self-absorbed a self-controlling kind of a thinking and a self-controlling approach.
Which is why, yeah,
Yeah, just being able to step out of yourself and
absolutely.
exactly be involved with other people and their lives, whether you are, I mean, and I'm not even, I mean, I tell people, don't even think about doing it from an altruistic or a philanthropist
Yeah,
perspective. Do it from a very selfish perspective maybe, but being involved with other people's lives, where you are going
absolutely.
beyond your own kind of self-absorbed thinking, actually becomes
Yes.
a great mechanism for them to control. And absolutely, I agree with the other one as well. I think one of the things that we talk about in our practice a lot is the five basic things that a human being does for himself needs to be done in a more controlled manner. Eating,
Yeah.
drinking is hydrating yourself, drinking water. So mindfully eating and ensuring you take care of your body and your working routine in what you eat. Drinking, hydrating yourself, ensuring there is enough water that goes into your system. Sleeping and ensuring you are able to get sleep in a slightly more not distracted, in a slightly more peaceful manner. Exercising, some sort of indulgence in what you do in your life. And breathing, so spending some time breathing and just concentrating on your breathing. I don't want to call it meditation, because that becomes limiting for many people. It could simply be at some point of time breathing in your life and breathing for yourself, mindfully watching what you are doing, actually becomes
Right.
extremely therapeutical. I'm not even going to the cognitive therapies and other mechanisms, but these just five basic things that every human being has to do, being more mindful, being more controlling, and kind of taking care of them, actually provides them a great input to mindfully look at their life and to actually look at interventions that they can do specifically in cases where they are going through an addiction or where they are going through a challenge and need to get support in their lives.
So, that is what yoga, which is the most ancient system, right? I would call it a system of just, and it's an ideology of life, right? It's
Mhm.
not just so, the whole Patanjali actually, elaborates it with, the yam, the niyam, ahar, vichar, pranayam, and pratyahar, which is a little withdrawal of the senses, right? So all of it really takes care of, developing you as a well-adjusted, a mindful human being,
Mhm.
all of it put together. And this is the most ancient science that India is very lucky to have inherited, right? We have the legacy. The problem is we are not bringing it in a way which resonates with the youth.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that
Exactly.
needs to happen, right? Because they're very potent. There's potent knowledge there, right? And it includes everything that you just said. Your food, your exercise, your breathing, your breath work, sitting in silence, withdrawal, and all of that, right? Put together. So anything has to be a holistic solution. It can't be just one or two things working, right?
Absolutely.
Uh, so yeah, I feel that's exactly what you said. A complete holistic regime to enable the individual to deal with all these discrepancies and empowering them,
Mhm. Sure. Hey, this has been a very enlightening conversation. I'm sure our audience is going to enjoy it. For all of you, any questions that you want to ask, anything that you want to know about, want to practice more mindfulness, you can find Neera Maini Srivastav. You can connect with her, and of course, you can come back to our handle, our channel, talk to us, and we will be able to point you in that direction as well. Neera, it's been a wonderful conversation with you. I hope we can have more of these as we move forward. Thank you so
Same
much.
here. It's been enlightening for me as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And thank you for being part of this Truth Shots with Kapil, the de-addiction series. Looking at the kind of behavioral addiction that exists right now in the world, I sincerely hope there are a lot more like you who start talking more mindfulness, who start talking more, just those minor small things that people can do in their lives in terms of
Yeah.
attitude, in terms of behavior, in terms of just minor changes that they can make further enrich their life. Thank you so much for sharing that knowledge, for
Thank you
sharing that.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And congratulations on your fabulous venture, I must say.
Thank you.
Uh, it's great going. It's something that the world needs. Yeah.
Thank you. And for those of you listening to this, Praram Life program is now also available in Hindi on the Soul Wellness platform. So you don't necessarily need to watch an English version of it. You can actually look at a look at it in your own language, Hindi. And soon we will be coming up with other languages as well. So do keep watching this space. Do keep looking at the Praram Life program. And of course, we are here to provide support whenever, wherever you need it. Thank you so much. And thank you so much once again, Neera.
Thank you so much, Kapil.